Hey there, and welcome to my 2025 top tarot decks. In this short, sweet, and simple video, we are going to walk through my top 5, maybe 6 tarot decks of 2025. These picks were based on a few pieces of general criteria I put together. Was it impactful to my practice? Was it inspirational to me? And did I just plain love it? So let's dive right into my first deck, the Tiger Tarot. The Tiger Tarot is one that I picked up this year, and I'm so glad I did. So let's check out the cards. What I find extremely inspirational about this deck is the artwork. Now, you could say that perhaps this would be too busy of collage style for me, but I think Lori does an excellent job of still having a central focus of the subject matter amongst this busier collage style. Now, as you can see, some are more simplified than others, but there's this beautiful balance of textures, patterns, and colors that really encase and frame the main subject matter. So while it may, at first glance, feel chaotic, there's actually a very streamlined composition and decision-making in this collage artwork. It's not scattered, it's not overly layered, there's not too many things that are the same size. There's great use of visual hierarchy, color, and once again, having that central focus. And when I say central focus, it doesn't mean that it's a centered composition symmetrically, right? Like, it is that your eye can go to what the main focus is and not be scattered and not know where to land. That's really important to me when I'm looking at collage art. I need a place for my eye to land. So why this is a top deck of mine for this year is not only because it pushed me with my collage decks. This may have not been one that I would have jumped to instantly had I not really sat down in these videos and really talked through my collage process and perspective, but also the guidebook. Now, the guidebook says that it is based on or slightly inspired by the Rider-Waite Smith. However, when I read the write-ups in the book, it really takes me in another direction, and I can almost see the sliver of where it was inspired by, but then it takes it in this whole different direction, which makes it a very unique deck in my collection and one that I have absolutely fallen in love with using. What also makes this really fun to engage with is the oversized cards. The cardstock is very bendy and flexible. It has a nice snap to it, so that helps with the size. It is a little cumbersome to deal with, but the awesome artwork, the different take on the card interpretations, and just the whole package for me is what places it there in my loved and inspired decks for this year. The Enchanted Tarot was a deck for me this year that felt very impactful to my practice. It is such an easy reader for me. We clicked instantly when I got it. And I even loved it so much that the first copy I got had an awful bow and twist that I went ahead and bought a second copy just so I can have something in a better condition. So this is the first edition, and I had the commemorative edition, I think. Might not be what they call it, but this first edition is printed a little darker than the previous edition I had, and the cards are not cut evenly. So I am toying with trying to find a third copy, but we'll see. I'm trying to be reasonable. So here's another collage deck in my top 5, and what was really great about this deck for me this year was once again leaning into my collage specialty, my collage interest, my collage practice, you could say, and really embracing decks in a collage style that pushes and pulls me in what I consider my tastes for collage in a deck, right? And I think Amy does an absolutely phenomenal job with her fabric collage. It is stunning, it is smart, it is technical, and it's beautiful. And I think these cards read so well. I love the play of the symbology, the colors, and that tactileness you get from the fabric used. If you look close in the artwork, you can tell it's not just a flat image. This was something three-dimensional, and that really inspires me. So this deck is definitely one that has been impactful for me, just like the previous Tiger Tarot, where not only did it feel impactful to my practice, but also inspirational with its artwork to my art practice. And that is something that matters to me with decks, because I am an artist, I'm a designer, I'm a deck creator. So being inspired by the artwork, feeling the artwork is such a big deal to me. That is what I'm engaging with. That's where my imagination goes. That's part of the interpretation. Everything about that relies really heavily for me. So sometimes with collage, I can certainly get extremely picky. And I kind of broke free from that a bit this year. And this was one of those that really helped me, push me to be more open-minded in the styles of collage that I bring into my deck collection. Now, of course, they still need to be ones that align with my tastes, my interests, and my preferences, of course. But I think sometimes, especially if we have such a niche profession or strength and experience, that we can be overly harsh in our critique. Not saying this was one of those for me, but just so you know where my mind is at, just how I process this sort of thing. So the Enchanted Tarot is one that just sits really near and dear to my heart. It also pairs beautifully with Coastal Curiosities, the standard edition with the colors. Shout out to Rainbow Lantern Tarot on Instagram for bringing that pairing to my attention, and I absolutely had to bring this deck in for that purpose originally. And then it just was an instant click for me, and we have been buds ever since. Now, this is why I said top 6, because I am lumping these two decks together as one in my top 5. So, forgive me for fudging the numbers here, but it just made sense. So the Mythologica Fennica Tarot was one that I kicked myself for not picking up indie. I had the chance and I just wasn't fully engrossed in my finished studies at that point. But once I knew this was coming out mass market, I had this on my list months and months ahead of its release, and I am so thankful that this exists. And the Kalevala Tarot is an out-of-print tarot that I also picked up specifically for my finish work, and I love using these two as study decks. So let's take a look at the cards. Now, these two decks, like I said, were very impactful to my practice this year. I used these specifically as study decks, so I would pull a card in a spread and then look up in the guidebooks or online for additional information, which I then would journal or just jot away in my brain for another time. What's amazing is that there's just not a lot of material on this, and the fact that there's tarot decks out there that I can engage with not only the tarot aspects, but then the Finnish myth and folklore aspect, I really couldn't ask for anything more in my practice. What's really great about the Mythologica Fennica Tarot is that it includes the characters from the Kalevala, but also a lot of Finnish folklore and spirits and the such, while the Kalevala Tarot, as its title, focuses on the characters and story in the national epic, the Kalevala. So these two bounce off really well, where I maybe am getting some more minute characters in this one, and I'm getting more of the more folk stories in this one, and between the two you get a really great balance of information, storytelling, and the such. I also really appreciate the drastic differences in the artistic styles in these. I feel like I get to engage with two different perspectives in the same genre. So these were definitely inspirational in the terms of my finished work, impactful in my practice, and that I genuinely just freaking loved. Now, like the Enchanted Tarot, I am on the hunt for another copy of the Kalevala Tarot. I did not get a copy in the standard big red box. I ended up buying the book and the deck in the small tuck box separate. And sadly, there is a card that is damaged in this one. I still love it, still use it, all of that, but it is something that I keep an eye out for a reasonably priced copy. So these two are super great. I am just so thankful that this exists out there and the fact that I could bring these into my collection. I just really couldn't ask for anything more, except more finished decks, please. Another deck that pushed me out of my comfort zone in terms of interpretation of the cards, representation of the tarot cards, is the Hyde Tarot. I absolutely love the design on this box. It is so cute and eye-catching. This deck always caught my eye. I just never went for it because I think I was still in a certain space in my mind of what decks to bring in, not to bring in, what I click with, what I don't click with. And I feel like when you just let that go and just try some decks out, even if they feel like maybe they aren't totally in your wheelhouse, that you may have an unexpected surprise, and this was one of them that I eventually really came to fall in love with and had to order. It was a slow growth one for me, and one that really pushed me in my practice. It is a very unconventional deck. It's non-traditional. I feel like it looks like an oracle at first with these big titles and then the tarot title underneath. But I absolutely love the mixed media, the black and white art, and the guidebook. The guidebook is so well done. I actually printed a copy out to have as a hard copy, and I love the way it is written, the way the artwork spoken about, the creation process, those small little tidbits of personal insight and reasoning. I think overall it's an extremely well done and beautiful deck, one that will push you in your understanding of the cards. And I feel like it opened up this whole avenue of darker decks for me. But just visually, I am such a bold, poppy, colorful, right? Like a really sort of over the top visual person, that paring down to black and white, paring down to a very simple, well, not simple, but simple in the terms of it's a main image and there's not a lot more going on with that, did open that up in my practice and just a whole world of pairings as well. I feel like once I brought in this black and white deck, then all of the black and white decks have followed. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's definitely a good thing and why it is on this top 5 list. Last but certainly not least, and just to mention these were in no particular order, Under the Oak Tarot. This deck I have featured on my channel a few times already before, so I'll keep it short and sweet, but this is definitely a top mass market deck for me and just a top deck in general. The storytelling is phenomenal throughout the cards. The artwork is so well done. I have zero critiques with this deck. If you watch my previous videos, you know I have one thing to say about the sword suit, but that's literally not anything to even critique or nitpick about. It's just a visual observation. You can understand the reasoning for why the artwork was made and drawn, illustrated the way it was. The colors are phenomenal. The subject matter, the characters, this land, this world that was built is undeniable. I think this is one of the strongest and most original mass market decks out there. I love this production quality that Los Scarabeo started going with, and this is just a stunningly thoughtful deck. As someone who critiques artwork and visuals for a living, that has to understand the context, the story, the reasoning behind not only the artwork itself, but what the artwork is trying to portray, this deck does no wrong. And I have just been head over heels with this deck since getting it in, and it was certainly a top used deck for me this year. And even when I wasn't using it, I was thinking about it. I have a large enough collection that I really try to rotate through my decks and not get stuck on one individual deck for too long, because I want to use what I bring in. I don't like decks just to sit there. I had to pry this away from myself to not use all the time. And I think you probably could tell that I love it since I featured it in probably the most videos out of any deck. It is just that well done. So if you have been on the fence about this deck, maybe give it another look, because it is certainly a top for me. Once again, I just wish there was more to the guidebook, because I want to know so much more of the story. Like, there's so much wrapped up into this artwork that I just feel like it could be broken down and just talked about endlessly in a book. I want a big coffee table book of this. I want to know all the things about the artwork, about the characters, about the world, about the animals, about the symbology used. It's just that good. All right, I hope you enjoyed those top tarot decks of my year. These were certainly impactful, inspirational, and I certainly loved them so much. Let me know if you have any of these decks, if any of these you would like to try, or were these on your list as well. I can't wait to continue on in 2026 and see what the year brings of tarot decks. So let me know what you think, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.